All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're looking at something absolutely crucial: how a government actually engineers a direct, structural attack on poverty. We aren't just talking about temporary charity here. We're breaking down the public policy designed to create systemic, long-term change. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to decode the exact blueprints and flagship schemes used to tackle poverty head-on.
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with the macro strategy, the three core dimensions, and then we'll zoom in on three massive flagship schemes: MGNEGA, PMJDY, and PMGY.
First up, let's look at India's overarching anti-poverty strategy.
If you take a look at the actual source document right here, you'll see that removing poverty isn't just some secondary side quest. It is literally written into the DNA of India's developmental strategy as a primary, foundational objective. Policy experts agree this is an issue that simply has to be checked without delay.
So, how does a country actually execute a goal this massive? It breaks down into three distinct dimensions.
Here is the entire playbook in 3 steps. 1. Promoting overall economic growth. 2. Targeted poverty alleviation programs. And 3. The provision of minimum basic needs. Let's unpack the logic behind each one of these pillars.
Dimension 1 is all about promoting overarching economic growth. The whole idea here is organic expansion. If you grow the national economy as a whole, you naturally generate more employment and higher income opportunities. And, theoretically, that newly generated wealth slowly trickles down to benefit everyone over a period of time.
But, as we know, waiting for a trickle-down effect can take decades, and that just wasn't fast enough for the most vulnerable. So, during the 5th plan, the government launched a quote-unquote direct attack. This second dimension skips the wait and focuses completely on targeted programs designed to immediately generate 2 specific kinds of employment.
The first kind is self-employment. This is where government programs step in to provide the training, the physical assets, or that crucial initial capital, empowering people to build their own livelihoods. The goal is to give them what they need to sustain themselves productively, rather than having to rely on an employer.
And then you have wage employment. If starting a business just isn't viable, the individual provides their labor, usually in public works, and the government steps in to pay them guaranteed direct wages. It's an immediate, vital lifeline to pull families out of poverty.
The third and final dimension acts as the ultimate safety net, providing minimum basic needs. Because listen, even with a booming economy and job programs, you still have to directly supplement the consumption of the most vulnerable populations. Think basic amenities like health, education, and massive infrastructure networks like the public distribution system, which uses hundreds of thousands of fair-price shops to provide essential subsidized food grains.
Okay, so that is the theory. But what does this look like in practice? Let's check out the timeline of 3 major, real-world case studies launched between 2000 and 2014 to see how these dimensions actually operate on the ground.
First up, guaranteed work under MGNRGA, which was launched back in February 2006. The absolute most crucial thing to remember about this scheme is this number: 100. That is 100 days of guaranteed wage employment every single financial year for every poor rural household. And this isn't just a promise, it's a legally backed guarantee. If you live in a rural area and you need unskilled manual work, the government is on the hook to provide you with up to 100 days of it to ensure you have a baseline income.
To build this absolute juggernaut of a program, they merged previous efforts like the SGRY and the NFFWP. Today, it operates in over 200 districts, and what's really key here is transparency. To cut out the middlemen and make sure the funds aren't lost, they transfer these wages straight into the workers' bank accounts.
But hey, to transfer wages to a bank account, citizens actually need to have a bank account, right? Enter our next case study, financial inclusion via PMJDY.
Launched in August 2014, this scheme is entirely about universal access to financial services for the completely unbanked. Because poverty isn't just about lacking cash in your pocket, it's being locked out of the formal systems needed to safely save, remit money, access credit, and protect yourself with insurance and pensions. It tackled this by rolling out basic savings bank deposit accounts that require minimal documentation, totally removing the old barriers to entry. Plus, account holders receive a RuPay debit card with built-in accident insurance, and eligible users can even access overdraft facilities.
It quite literally brought millions of underserved rural citizens right into the modern economy.
Finally, let's look at village development through PMGY, launched in the year 2000.
This scheme perfectly illustrates that minimum basic needs dimension we talked about earlier. Take a look at this threshold number, 500. Under the Gram Sadak Yojana subproject, any rural village with a population of more than 500 is specifically targeted to get all-weather roads. Because think about it, without a road, a village is totally cut off from markets, from hospitals, from schools. Infrastructure is the absolute baseline of basic needs.
It's a massive, holistic push for village development. You've got Gram Sadak Yojana for those critical roads, Gramodaya housing for basic shelter, and the Rural Drinking Water Project for irrigation, rainwater harvesting, and water conservation, which is just an absolute lifesaver in drought-affected areas.
So stepping back and looking at this giant puzzle, here's a question for us to chew on. As infrastructure scales up and millions more get financially included through PMJDY, where does future policy go? Should it lean heavily into direct cash transfers to eradicate poverty, or will the guaranteed physical labor of schemes like MGNREGA always be the cornerstone of rural survival? It's a complex debate, for sure, but understanding these foundational blueprints is the only way we're ever going to solve it. Thanks for tuning into this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.